The communication plan. A communication plan facilitates the effective and efficient communications between the project leader and the various internal and external project stakeholders. A communication plan defines the general communication requirements of the project and includes the following components: a communication strategy, communication policies, governance with roles and responsibilities for communication, the communication requirements from the stakeholders, the roles and responsibilities for communicating in the project, and the communication channels the project will use. The communication strategy defines the goals and objectives of communications in the project. It defines what the project leader and the project team will accomplish with communications. These are some of the common goals of project communications: to increase knowledge about the project and why it's important, to gain support to the project, to provide opportunities for stakeholders' participation. The communication strategy also sets the tone the project will use in all its communications. The plan will also include a description of the organizational policies and procedures regarding communications, both internal and external. Most of the policies are basic communication rules designed to ensure that all communications reflect the values of the organization. It also details the organizational hierarchy for communication with key stakeholders, such as government officials and donors. Policies help ensure the quality, accuracy, timeliness, and privacy of all organizational communications. Project leaders have to have a good understanding of the organization's policies and procedures for communicating with internal and external stakeholders. A communication charter is a useful tool that brings together the major components of the communications governance, policies, and procedures that the project will use for communicating. It basically defines three components: who communicates, which is the people responsible for formal communications. The project leader, for example, will be responsible for all formal communications with internal and external stakeholders. What is communicating? It describes the key messages that the project will communicate. How communication takes place. It describes the channels the project will use to communicate, for example, emails, intranets, websites, meetings, etc. The communication plan also describes how the project will communicate with internal and external stakeholders. Its main purpose is to determine, document, and plan the communication needs of the project and its various stakeholders. It's a document that answers the following questions: who needs information, what type of information they need, why they need it, how they need it, who is responsible for communicating, and when they need it. Depending on the size of the project, the communication plan can be small or very detailed, but it's a responsibility of the project leader to develop this plan and implement it. To develop a communication plan, you can take the following steps: identify the audience, define the communication needs, define the purpose of communication, identify communication channels, define the frequency, and define roles and responsibilities. In the first step, the project leader, with assistance from the project team, will develop a list of all the key stakeholders the project needs to communicate with. This list will identify those stakeholders that have a priority. Stakeholders can also be classified as internal, such as the steering committee and program directors and administrative managers, or external, such as donors, government officials, partners, and beneficiaries. Active stakeholders are those that demand information from the project. For example, the donor requires progress reports. Passive stakeholders are those the project considers will need information. For example, the public, to stay informed about the project objectives. This list is the audience for all project communications. The next step is to identify all the information that the stakeholders require from the project. For example, progress reports might be needed by the steering committee. Other type of information includes project plans to coordinate activities with partners working with the project, monitoring reports, and financial reports required by donors. It's also a good idea to identify the purpose of the communications. This information can help in the development of the communication message and ensure it achieves its goal. For example, to make decisions about the project progress in the use of the budget and the schedule. Other reasons include to provide support and to coordinate activities with vendors, consultants, and partners. The next element of the communication plan is to list the channels to communicate with the various stakeholders. Each stakeholder will have a different preference based on their understanding and accessibility. These include a document using specific formats, for example, a donor's financial report that must use the donor's accounting codes. Other channels include face-to-face presentation to beneficiaries, meeting with the project team and key stakeholders, and email messages and phone calls with consultants and internal stakeholders. The last element of the communication plan identifies the person or groups responsible for the various project communications. Depending on the communication governance and policies and procedures of the organization, different people may have different roles in the communication plan. For example, the project leader will be responsible for all communications with the team, partners, and the donor on matters related to the project activities, but team members may have responsibilities communicated with their counterparts in partner organizations to coordinate project activities. An important component of this responsibility is to request or receive feedback. The feedback helps understand if the message was received as intended and helps improve the communications plan. The communication matrix organizes all the information of the plan in a simple format that facilitates its implementation. Each column corresponds to each one of the elements of the project plan. Depending on the needs of the project, the columns can be modified to add more information. For example, approvals for sending the communications and priorities to optimize use of the resources. The matrix is a simple method to visualize the communication plan and make it available for all team members that have a responsibility to communicate. The communication plan is a critical tool of the project leader. The plan formally defines who should be given specific information, when that information should be delivered, and what communication channels will be used to deliver information. The plan is a tool the project leader uses to be an effective communicator.